everybody, welcome back to BK's Bullets. Today we're talking about more Brad Meltzer JLA. This is the Lightning Saga. Hey everybody, welcome back to BK's Bullets. We're jumping right back in with Brad Meltzer here. The Lightning Saga trade paperback. This is volume 2 of his JLA run. Doesn't say volume 2 on the side or anything. In fact, not a lot. 2 issues of this are also written by Jeff Johns because this is titled after the crossover that we had in Justice League and Justice Society of America back in 2008-ish, where you had the teams kind of team up for the first time in a long time that we'd seen across each other's books. So that's where the Lightning Saga comes in. That's the first 5 issues in this book. And then you have 3 issues after that. You have, I think, Justice League 11 and 12. And then finally you have the finally collected Justice League 0. And I thought this was a weird place to put this because in actuality, like Justice League 0 came out before 1 did back in 2007. I was picking them all up off the rack. I had all the single issues before I sold my whole collection. And I was like, this is kind of a weird thing to put there, but the way that Monitor Duty issue number 12 plays out, putting number 0 after it kind of fits in to make a nice bow on the whole run. Like if you read Tornado's Path and this volume, if you read 1 through 12 and then you read 0, it's kind of this nice bow about like thematically, oh, here we are back again, talking about who should be on the league, who deserves to be on the league, after you've read the Tornado's Path and seen what everybody went through there, after you read the Lightning Saga and how everybody interacts there, after you read Walls and after you read Monitor Duty. Really, really cool stuff. I would say the worst thing about this trade is it's not the crossover. That is fun. And honestly, I was kind of wondering if I was going to feel left out having not read any of the Justice Society books in the last, 10 years or so since they came out. But I gotta say, I didn't feel left out. Maybe I was pulling from some of my old memories from back in the day, but I think you'll be fine if you just are picking this up for the first time, honestly. As long as you know who the Justice Society are, and they kind of give a little recap of who they are, what their purpose is, you'll be fine. But, yeah, I think it's clear why this crossover also was collected in the Justice League of America trade, because it deals, like they set up the whole thing with Trident being a member of the Legion at the end of the last issue of Tornado's Path, follows up right in here with the first Justice League issue, and keeps going from there. And ultimately, what the Legion is here to do is kind of resurrect, so to speak, a Justice League member, not really the society. So I think that's why they chose to tie them all in. As for where the Legion goes after this, if you want to read their further adventures, they lead into the Countdown series, Countdown to Infinite Crisis. I do have those trades. We're going to reread them here in, sometime. But I did acquire them. I haven't read it since it came out. And I was picking up the issues in singles. But, so I'm interested to read that. I know it wasn't very good, but I do know I enjoyed it for kind of what it was, even though it never actually tied into Final Crisis. But anyway, so the Karate Kid stuff's kind of further explored in there before we get into Final Crisis. And then shortly after Final Crisis, you have Flashpoint. And then, boom, the reboot with New 52, right? So anyway, lots of phenomenal art in here. You got Ed Benes coming in here. Doing his stuff. You got Fernando Pasarin doing the first Justice Society issue. You have Dale Eaglesham coming in here. You have Gene Ha doing the Walls issue, which is really quite interesting. He's got this interesting kind of detailed, I would call it like a Dougie Braithwaite painterly look. The way that Doug Braithwaite kind of looks without any inks. You know what I mean? If you've read some of his stuff on Brave and the Bold back in the day, you know what I'm talking about. But when Doug Braithwaite doesn't have an inker and they just do colors over pencils, that's what Gene Ha's stuff here reminded me of. Because they're kind of doing the same thing. Because I've seen some stuff with Gene Ha back in the day and more recently with some inks on them, and it looks completely different from this. So that was a fun issue. Really, really good self-contained issue. Walls here, number 11, and then number 12, the Monitor Duty single issue, also a phenomenal single issue. So everything kind of makes sense. I guess the downside here, what I was trying to say earlier, the downside is there's many, many threads set up here from Brad Meltzer that if you continue to read the Justice League book with Dwayne McDuffie's run, which I highly recommend, and I'm going to seek those trades out because I remember loving them, they don't really follow up on what he sets up here. Like, there's stuff with Ultra Humanite and Degaton and some other villain, here you go, Despero, that I don't know if they were meant to be used later on by Brad Meltzer, and he had to jump off to do other things, or if he was actually setting them up for future writers and then never picked up on them. That's the kind of stuff that is kind of the failure, is that there's so many things like in this Lightning Saga thing, these shadowy figures that you think are going to come into play that aren't really followed up on. Like even the Monitor Duty one, there's some shadowy figures in here, and it turns out that it's not villains, it's some other leaguers that want to be on the league, which is kind of interesting. I'm not going to spoil who they are. The things that do remain from this run that I did appreciate in future issues, so it's not really a critique of this trade paperback, but Ed Benes stays on. I believe the relationship between Hawkgirl and Roy Harper stays on also. Black Canary being the chairwoman of the Justice League is actually explored in future issues and future volumes. It's kind of less explored here. Dwayne McDuffie really did take that idea and run with it. The fact that she was the chairwoman, kind of the boss of the Justice League, as far as Meltzer was concerned. He planted that idea in, I believe, the first volume, but never really explored it in these two because I think he got lumped into this crossover. Whether it was his idea or not, it's not really clear here. But yeah, all in all, I gotta say, Meltzer's 12-issue run, short, sweet. Yes, I feel like the Tornado's Path is a stronger story out of these two if I'm going to have to pick one or the other. So issue 11 and 12, Walls, Monitor Duty, really strong single issue stories as far as Justice League ones are concerned, diving into character development, why the characters are acting the way they act. There's stuff in here with Roy, more of that family name, family business stuff that gets explored a little bit more. I really wish I could have seen Meltzer stay on to have that fleshed out further, because I feel like when McDuffie comes on, if my memory serves correctly, he dives more into Black Canary and her being the chairwoman as opposed to the stuff with Roy and Hawkgirl, and he's also bringing in the versions of the Maelstrom characters at that time, so it gets a little weird. But yeah, I gotta say, like, this is a nice short and sweet run. These 12 issues, they're fun, they're kind of self-contained. You know, you really don't have to reread everything beforehand if you don't want to, but stuff certainly benefits because Meltzer has this knowledge of classic Justice League history that he's drawing from, and you'll especially be lost a little bit or kind of looking for clues when you're reading issue 0 here at the end, where he's flashing back to moments of the past, like Donna Troy's wedding in New Teen Titans by Wolfman and Perez, or the Detroit Justice League era, the Bwahaha punching, what's his face? Guy Gardner in the face with the one punch. That sort of stuff plays in here. So if you don't have any knowledge of that, you're not going to get the joke here of Kevin McGuire drawing that scene or anything like that. There's also flashing forward to stuff that happens in the future, which I don't really know was seeds for future storylines or just fun things to do. A lot of deaths, a lot of funerals in the future that Superman and Wonder Woman are attending. So all in all, I really do enjoy Brad Meltzer's comics. I think that's really what comes out of this. I enjoyed Identity Crisis, I enjoyed this, I enjoyed Tornado's Path, and the fact that he hasn't done a bunch of comics in a long, long time, I think is a detriment. He's great at it, he's phenomenal, but if you did like these and you haven't read any of his novels, I gotta say, go try his Culper Ring series from a few years ago. I think it's 3 books. They're really, really excellent. I've read all of those. I can vouch for them. They're phenomenal. It's about the secret Washington spy ring. So if you've read Why the Last Man, you kind of know what that might be referring to, but I'll just leave it there on the table. So anyway, Brad Meltzer, underrated Justice League writer. I'm sad it was only 12 issues. I wish it would have been longer, and I think most people might if they reread these again. So let me know what you guys think of Brad Meltzer and Ed Bennis' run on the Justice League, and we'll see you guys next time in the Funny Pages.